In the quiet hours before dawn, when the world is draped in a heavy velvet silence, the weight of responsibility often feels its most tangible. Whether in a bustling financial hub in Europe or a quiet office in the American continent, leaders of all kinds find themselves awake, staring into the shadows and reflecting on the path that brought them to this moment. Leadership, in its purest form, is not merely a title or a seat at the head of a table. It is the culmination of a lifetime's worth of thoughts, actions, and words. Every decision made in the past, every small act of courage or moment of hesitation has acted as a forge, shaping the individual into the guide they have become today. It is a journey that begins long before a formal appointment and continues through every sunrise, demanding a constant evolution of the self. The scope of this influence is vast and varied, appearing in forms both grand and humble. It is seen in the parent who organizes a large, chaotic household with a steady hand and a warm heart, or the coach on a dusty field in Latin America who teaches children the value of teamwork and persistence. It exists in the founder of a fledgling startup, working alone in a garage, and in the high-ranking executive navigating the complexities of a global corporation. Regardless of the scale, the essence of the task remains the same: the art of inspiring others, the discipline of organization, and the fire of motivation. To lead a family is to understand the same fundamental principles of human connection that govern the boardrooms of the world's most influential organizations. The setting may change, but the core of the human spirit and the need for direction remains constant. Yet, as the world grows increasingly complex, the cry for effective leadership echoes from every corner of society. In modern times, the struggle is visible in the halls of government, where leaders grapple with the challenge of finding a unified focus for their nations, sometimes finding it difficult to even see their own mandates through to the end. It is evident in the corporate world, where the sheer speed of competition and the intricacies of global markets leave even the most seasoned management teams feeling as though they are navigating a storm without a compass. Public sectors too face these winds of change, often hindered by dwindling resources and the immense pressure of maintaining social pillars like education and healthcare. Even in the most intimate parts of our communities, our local organizations, our places of worship, and our own homes, the absence of strong, consistent guidance is felt as a deep and painful void. When one envisions a successful leader, names of great renown may spring to mind, individuals who have built empires or changed the course of history through sheer force of will. But true leadership is often found in more quiet yet equally vital roles. It is found in the mentor who once saw potential where no one else did, the local official who works tirelessly for their neighborhood, or the partner who provides the emotional bedrock upon which a family is built. This path is not reserved for the few. It is a world waiting for anyone willing to transform into the best version of themselves. The journey involves a deep dive into the arsenal of one's own tools, skills that have been underutilized and strengths that have been ignored, while finally addressing the lingering weaknesses that act as anchors, preventing progress. As the narrative of a leader unfolds, it becomes clear that this is a process of profound self-reflection. It is about carving out the time to ponder how one wishes to grow, how to foster the next generation of pioneers, and how one desires to be remembered by those they served. It is an exploration of self-leadership, motivation, and the diverse styles that one might adopt to navigate the shifting tides of human endeavor. Through the exploration of mindsets and communication, the leader begins to see that their role is not just a command, but to create a space where others can flourish. However, before the heights of success can be reached, there is a fundamental truth that must be confronted, a truth that keeps even the most powerful individuals awake at night, wondering if they have what it takes to survive the inevitable storms ahead. In the upper echelons of the professional world, there is a secret shared by almost everyone, yet spoken by almost no one. A deep-seated anxiety ripples through the ranks of those in charge, a tension that hums beneath the surface of every board meeting and every strategic planning session. Studies have shown that a staggering 9 out of 10 leaders admit that their primary concern, the one that robs them of their rest and haunts their quiet moments, is the haunting fear of failure. In an era defined by volatility and the unknown, the specter of a wrong turn or a disastrous decision is ever present. This fear is not born of a lack of competence, but rather from a deep understanding of the stakes involved. The world is a place of infinite variables, and no matter how much expertise one gathers or how much wisdom one applies, the guarantee of success remains elusive. The reality of the leadership landscape is that failure is not just a possibility, it is an inevitability. Even with the most meticulous planning and the sharpest minds at work, there will be days when the best-laid schemes go awry. Perhaps the sales figures, once projected to soar, fall into a disappointing slump that leaves the entire organization reeling. Or perhaps the costs of a new project, such as a factory being built in England or a technology hub in the American continent, swell to twice the original budget, threatening the financial stability of the venture. These are not just numbers on a page. They represent the collective effort, hopes, and security of countless people. When a newly hired team member fails to meet expectations and must be let go, or when a key supplier walks away from the negotiating table, the leader feels the weight of that collapse personally. Imagine the scene. A leader has spent months courting a prestigious client, pouring every resource and ounce of energy into winning their trust, only to see them sign with a competitor at the 11th hour. Or consider the individual standing on a stage, having put forth a vision for their community, only to find that their strategy failed to resonate, leaving them with the fewest votes and a future that suddenly looks very different from what they had imagined. These moments are visceral. They are accompanied by a sharp sting of embarrassment, a cold dread about job security, and a natural human impulse to retreat. The instinct to hide the mistake, to bury the evidence of the failure, or to deflect the blame towards someone else is incredibly strong. It is a defensive mechanism, a way to protect the ego from the harsh light of public or professional scrutiny. However, there is a dangerous pattern that often emerges in these moments of crisis. Many leaders, in an attempt to maintain an aura of invincibility, choose to close their eyes and ears to the reality of what has occurred. They act as if the failure never happened, sweeping the debris under the rug and moving forward without a backward glance. They believe that by ignoring the wound, they can make it disappear. But this silence is a corrosive force. It creates a culture of denial and prevents the growth that can only come from honest assessment. To act as though one is immune to error is to build a foundation on sand. Success is not the absence of failure, but the result of how one chooses to respond to it. Successful leaders understand that this avoidance is a recipe for long-term disaster. They recognize that to truly improve and to elevate their capabilities, they must lean into the discomfort of their struggles. They must treat their failures not as a source of shame, but as a rich territory for exploration. The difference between a leader who stagnates and one who thrives lies in their willingness to peel back the layers of a mistake to find the hidden lessons within. By embracing the difficulty, they find the fuel needed to overcome the current situation, and, more importantly, the wisdom to ensure that the same trap is never stepped into twice. But to do this requires a fundamental shift in perspective, a move away from the pursuit of perfection and towards a more courageous, experimental way of being.
The transition from a state of fear to one of exploration is a profound psychological journey. It requires the leader to foster a mindset rooted in experimentation, viewing every project and every initiative not as a final judgment on their worth, but as a laboratory for growth. A leader who embodies this philosophy develops a high tolerance for the messiness of the creative process. They become the kind of person who encourages their team to constantly push the boundaries, to test new ideas, to integrate different people into the fold, and to reinvent the very ways in which they work. They understand that innovation is rarely a straight line. It is a series of zigzags, some of which will inevitably lead to dead ends. By motivating and inspiring their team to cast off the shackles of the fear of failure, the leader opens the floodgates of potential. When a team knows they will not be punished for a well-intentioned mistake, they become bolder, more creative, and more invested in the outcome. The leader's role shifts from being a critic to being a facilitator of discovery. They help their collaborators understand that things rarely go exactly according to the script, and that a setback is often just a different kind of beginning. An unfavorable result in one area might be the very key that unlocks a breakthrough in another, revealing a path that was previously invisible. This perspective transforms the workplace from a high-pressure arena into a space of vibrant collective learning. Central to this transformation is the creation of a culture where learning is the highest priority. Errors are treated as data points rather than personal flaws. When a failure occurs, and it will, the leader does not shy away from it. Instead, they champion a practice of deep reflection, a systematic approach to extracting the maximum return on the effort that was invested, even if that effort didn't yield the intended goal. This is not about a cursory glance at what went wrong. It is about an open-minded, rigorous exercise in understanding the why behind the what. Every member of the team is encouraged to bring their perspective to the table, creating a 360-degree view of the event. This process is about more than just correcting a course. It is about building a collective intelligence. It is a commitment to the idea that every experience, no matter how painful, has value if it is properly dissected. The leader guides the group through a period of deep thinking, ensuring that they don't just move on to the next task, but that they carry the weight of their new knowledge with them. This reflection becomes a cornerstone of their identity as a team. They are no longer just people who do work, they are people who learn how to do work better every single day. As this culture takes root, the emotional subtext of the organization begins to change. The tension of not failing is replaced by the excitement of finding out. Symbols of failure are no longer hidden in the shadows, but are brought into the light and analyzed like artifacts. This shift doesn't happen overnight, but through consistent action and the leader's own willingness to be vulnerable. The narrative momentum builds as the team sees their leader admitting their own missteps and showing exactly how they plan to grow from them. This authenticity creates a powerful bond of trust, setting the stage for a critical revelation about the true nature of success, a revelation that will change the way everyone involved views their work and their future.
The true test of this leadership philosophy comes when the stakes are at their highest, when a major failure occurs that cannot be easily explained away or ignored. In such a moment, the atmosphere is often thick with tension, and the instinct to find a scapegoat is at its peak. The critical turning point happens when the leader chooses to step into that tension and transform it. Instead of a room filled with pointed fingers and defensive postures, they create a sanctuary for truth. They gather their team together, not to conduct an autopsy of blame, but to embark on a journey of discovery. This is the moment where the lessons learned mindset is put into practice, and it is a scene of intense emotional and intellectual weight. The leader sits with their collaborators, and the air is cleared of any intent to hurt or diminish one another. The objective is explicit: growth and future success. They begin by asking the first of two fundamental questions. What can we learn from this? What exactly happened, and why? This is not a simple question. It requires a brave exploration of the timeline, the decisions made, the external factors at play, and the internal gaps in knowledge. It might reveal that a strategy used in a negotiation in Latin America failed because of a misunderstanding of local nuances, or that a technical failure in a project in the American continent was the result of rushed testing. The why is the most important part, as it digs beneath the surface to find the root causes that are often hidden by the symptoms of the failure. As the team speaks, the leader listens with an intensity that validates every contribution. They facilitate a brainstorming session where the goal is to be as clear and honest as possible. This is the climax of the leadership experience, the collapse of the old way of doing things, and the birth of a new understanding. The revelation is that the failure itself was a teacher, one that provided insights that no success ever could. They realize that they are now in possession of unique information that their competitors do not have. This turning point redefines the story's trajectory. They are no longer a team that lost, but a team that has been battle-tested and refined. Then comes the second question, the one that pivots the group toward the future. How can we become stronger and wiser, and how can we guarantee greater success in our next endeavors? This question transforms the energy in the room from reflection to action. It is about taking the raw material of the failure and forging it into a better strategy, a more resilient process, or a more cohesive team structure. The focus shifts to the how, the tangible steps that will be taken to apply the lessons learned. The intensity of the text is translated into a shared commitment to excellence that is far deeper than it was before the setback occurred. This sequence of events, the confrontation of the failure, the deep dive into the why, and the strategic pivot to the how, is the peak of the leader's journey. It is where the abstract concept of learning from failure becomes a lived reality. The transition out of this moment is one of profound clarity. The fear that once paralyzed the team has been replaced by a sense of purpose. They understand that while they cannot control every outcome in an uncertain world, they have absolute control over how much they grow from every experience. The consequences of this realization will ripple through everything they do next, leading to a resolution that is both quiet and incredibly powerful. In the aftermath of such a revelation, a new kind of calm settles over the leader and their team. The storm has passed, and while there may be some wreckage to clear away, there is also a profound sense of renewal.
The internal transformation is visible in the way the leader carries themselves. The rigid armor of perfectionism has been replaced by a flexible, resilient spirit. They no longer see failure as a threat to their identity, but as a necessary companion on the road to greatness. This quiet after the climax is a time for the lessons to truly sink in, moving from the intellect to the very heart of how the organization functions. The external consequences are equally significant. The lessons learned sessions become a regular part of the rhythm of work, not just for failures, but for every major milestone. The culture has been fundamentally altered. People no longer hide their mistakes. They bring them forward almost with a sense of pride, knowing that their transparency will contribute to the collective wisdom of the group. The transformation is seen in the increased speed of innovation, as the team is no longer held back by the invisible chains of fear. They take calculated risks, knowing that even if they fall, they will be caught by a culture that values their effort and their growth above all else. As a result of this shift, the successes that follow are more robust and more frequent. The strategy that was once weak is now informed by the hard-won insights of the past. The negotiations, whether in Europe or elsewhere, are conducted with a deeper understanding of the pitfalls to avoid. The new projects are planned with a realistic view of the complexities involved, leading to more accurate budgets and timelines. The leader sees their team growing stronger and wiser with every passing day, becoming a group of future leaders themselves. This is the true resolution. The failure was not the end of the story, but the catalyst for a much greater one. Reflecting on the internal changes, the leader realizes that their own capacity for empathy has expanded. They can now relate to the struggles of others with a genuine heart, providing the kind of support that they themselves once needed. They have learned that the most effective way to lead is not by knowing all the answers, but by having the courage to ask the right questions and the humility to learn from the outcomes. This settling after the event is not a return to the old way of being, but an arrival at a new, higher level of operation. The emotional resonance of this period is one of deep satisfaction, not the fleeting high of a victory, but the enduring peace of mastery. The narrative now moves toward a natural closure. The leader has navigated the most difficult terrain and has emerged not only intact, but significantly improved. They have demonstrated that the secret to long-term success is not the avoidance of mistakes, but the relentless pursuit of the wisdom hidden within them. The consequences of this journey will be felt for years to come, as the leader continues to build a legacy of resilience and continuous improvement. The story of this chapter of their life concludes with a clear sense of achievement, setting the stage for a final reflection on the broader meaning of this experience and the legacy that will be left behind. As the journey through the landscape of leadership and the anatomy of failure concludes, a profound clarity remains. The essence of the message is simple, yet revolutionary. The path to the summit is paved with the very stones that once caused a stumble. To lead with success is to understand that every failure is a vital chapter in one's own story of development. It is the friction that sharpens the blade and the fire that tempers the steel. When a leader finally stops fearing the fall, they are finally free to reach for heights they never dared to imagine. This philosophy transcends the world of business and enters the realm of the human experience. It reminds us that we are all, in some capacity, leaders of our own lives and the lives of those we touch. The willingness to experiment, to be vulnerable, and to learn from the why and the how is what distinguishes those who merely exist from those who truly thrive. Leadership is not about being a perfect statue, unchanging and cold. It is about being a living, breathing example of resilience. It is about showing those who follow that it is possible to face a setback with dignity and to emerge with a more profound understanding of the world. The legacy of such a leader is not found in the sales figures or the buildings they constructed, though those may remain. Their true legacy is found in the people they inspired to be brave. It is in the culture of innovation they fostered and the future leaders they nurtured by showing them that a mistake is not a dead end but a crossroads. They leave behind a world where people are encouraged to be curious rather than cautious, and where the pursuit of excellence is a collective adventure rather than a solitary burden. This is the meaning that lingers long after the day's work is done. In the end, the most important lesson is that we are all constantly in a state of preparation. Every thought, action, and word, including those born from our greatest errors, is preparing us for the leadership we are called to provide today and in the future. The invitation is always open to step into that role with a new mindset, one that views the world not as a series of tests to pass or fail, but as an endless opportunity to grow. By embracing the inevitable failures with an open heart and a sharp mind, the leader ensures that their journey will be one of continuous ascent. So as the light of understanding settles over the horizon, there is a sense of quiet triumph. The leader looks back at the challenges and the collapses not with regret, but with gratitude. Each one was a necessary part of the climb. The story concludes not with a final destination, but with a renewed commitment to the process of becoming. It leaves the listener with the realization that the greatest success is not in never failing, but in the wisdom and strength gained every time one chooses to rise, reflect, and move forward with even greater purpose.